Well, sometimes the simplest of ideas can lead to the biggest payoff. And that was the case when I tried a recipe I just seem to be seeing everywhere these days. So this morning, I wanted to share it with you for this week's Brittany's Bites. Today we are working with fresh ingredients. Once again, things that are really in season and we want to make use of while we can. You may remember last week we worked with sweet corn. Today we're going with tomatoes. Hopefully you have some fresh from your garden. Mine are fresh from the grocery store. But don't worry, these work great. And this is a way where we're going to keep the freshness instead of making them into a sauce and bottling it up or something like that. You absolutely can do that. Here's another idea for you. It is called pan con tomate. All right. That is a Spanish version of Spanish tomato toast or Spanish tomato bread. So we're kind of toasting it, so I'm going with one or the other. But it's a very, very, very simple recipe. In fact, I'm basically preparing something rather than cooking, and that should tell you how easy it is. I got this idea because I feel like I'm seeing it everywhere on social media, on food channels, and also a coworker recently made it. So here we are. Let's see how we can do it. I already got it a little bit started here. I just have some tomatoes, and whatever tomatoes you have around will work. I just started by slicing them in half, and then you're going to take your box grater with a big enough bowl that it doesn't get too messy, and you're going to grate the tomatoes. And what you're going to do is cut it in half so you really get the open sides to get started with, and then grate it like this. And you'll be surprised. You can go all the way down, and obviously be careful here, but you'll end up with just the skin. And when you get down to the skin, flatten your hand out a little bit, and you can get all of the tomato out, and then you're just left with the skin. I'm going to toss it back there and do my other half. And really you can just kind of do as many or as few as you'd like. I think I have about 5 in here now that I've cut in half and grated in here. And the next thing is you can leave it like this, and we're going to add just a couple of things to it. Now again, this is very, very simple because we really want to highlight just the fresh tomatoes right now. But you could drain it, which is what I think I'm going to do. It depends on just how juicy your tomatoes are. So if you see here, I've got a lot of sort of watery juice, and I don't want that to get in the way and just sort of drip all off of my toast. So I'm going to carefully, we'll see, put it through a strainer here. And then I'm basically just going to end up with tomato pulp, essentially. But don't worry, that's what we want. That's going to be the goodness that we're going to spread onto some garlic toast that we're going to make here. So you can see all of this extra juice. This is fine if you want it. There's nothing wrong with this, but it's just a texture thing. Okay, so I'm going to pour this back in here, put this off to the side. And as I said, we're keeping things so simple that I'm basically just going to add some salt. And I've seen people add a little dash of lime juice actually, which I think sounds awesome. But I think I might add a little bit of white balsamic just to give it an extra little something or other. But you definitely want to salt this up pretty well. Tomatoes will really, really need that salt, especially when they're fresh like this. And 1 or 2 more cranks. Again, the traditional way, keep it like this. I'm going to add in a little dash of white balsamic. You can use regular balsamic too. It'll mix right in. And then I'm gonna stir that up. Oh, it smells great already. Stir that up and set it to the side so really it can kind of come together. That salt will get throughout, and we're just gonna let it sort of sit over here while we get our bread ready. And speaking of that, you just want to get a crusty bread. It can be anything at the store. I cheated and got one that's already pre-sliced. You know, make life easy on yourself. That's what I say. So the oven behind me is at about 400 degrees. You can even broil this too if you'd like to do that. But I'm just going to set a few of these out on my tray. And you can see I've covered it with aluminum foil. That's because, again, I want to make life easy, and I want easy cleanup at the end of this. All right, I'm going to move the littler one down there. And before we put it in, we definitely want to come in with olive oil. That's another key ingredient. So I'm gonna just drizzle some on, and then I do have a little brush over here, and I'll brush it and make sure that it gets all over the bread evenly. So I'm just gonna brush it. And then I'm gonna pop this in the oven for about 3 or 4 minutes. Keep an eye on it. And again, you could broil it too if you want it really, really crispy and crunchy, but definitely keep an eye on it then. And then when we bring it out, we really have one last thing to do. We're gonna rub it with some garlic. When it's nice and warm, it'll soak it right in, and then top it with this. This is how simple it is. It's just really focusing on the freshness of the tomatoes. It's a great thing to serve, to take to a party. Obviously very easy to bake. Really no cooking required except popping bread in the oven, which I'm gonna do right now. Okay, we have our bread out of the oven. It is very well toasted. Look away for 1 second, it's gonna get away from you. Mine almost did, but I think I saved it just in time. Remember, we just put a little olive oil on it before we put it in the oven. Now we're gonna take a garlic clove. Basically the biggest garlic clove I've ever seen. This is literally just one. I peeled it, and then you're just gonna rub this all over the bread, and it's nice and hot. So it's going to, and you'll see part of your garlic clove will start to disappear because it's just melting into the bread, and oh my goodness, it smells so good as well. So a reminder, we only have 5 ingredients we're using here. I added in a sneaky 6th one, but really you just have bread, garlic, olive oil, tomatoes, and salt. I added in, as you saw there, a drizzle of that balsamic. Yeah, I used almost all, well, more than half of this huge garlic clove, but oh my goodness, it smells so good in here right now. So I had the tomatoes that we grated and salted and put in that little balsamic vinegar for sitting here for a minute. I think it's good. This is when you can give it a taste and decide if you need to add any more. No, that is perfect. You know what, I grew up not even loving raw tomatoes. I rarely ate them, and now I love it. And this is so good. So this is the last step. All you're gonna do now is scoop a little bit on each piece of bread. And by the way, did you know that in Spain, this is often eaten for breakfast? I think we would look at this and think of it as an appetizer, but point being, you can eat this anytime you want. All right, once we spread it on over, the last thing we're gonna do is take some flaky salt, just sprinkle it on top, and there you have your pan con tomate, or Spanish tomato bread. Cheers! Well, remember, if you have a picture of one of my recipes you've made, or you want to share an idea for a future recipe, you can text it to us at 614-460-3345, or find me on social media. And